This is my top bar hive. I've kept in this hive for all 4 of my beekeeping summers. I built it with my lovely wife in June 2014.
Make it bigger, make it better.
It's 48 inches long and 18 inches deep. I think it's too deep, but I'll get back to that after I tell you more about it. I built it out of 3/8 inch plywood for the sides and 1/2 inch plywood for the faces. To bolster the insulative value of such thin walls, I attached styrofoam insulation panels to the sides. The roof is tar paper with a simple frame. I try to keep a space of air under the roof during the summer. The wax gets soft enough without the sun beating directly onto the top bars. I used a screen bottom to allow adequate and natural ventilation during the hot summers. This also allows wax cappings and parasites to fall out of the hive instead of collecting on the floor where they would have to be maintained by the bees, or crawl back up to infest the bees again. In the late fall, I stretch a piece of fabric across the open bottom to prevent winter wind from entering the hive and interrupting the warmth of the cluster. The lack of a solid bottom also allows me one of my favorite opportunities.
I love coming out at night and looking under the screen bottom to take a look at the bees when all the colony is home. It's an angle I don't think many people can take on their bees, and I think the observation is worth something. I have a mirror underneath the hive, and I place a flashlight looking up into the screen bottom. I know that this kind of light isn't good for the bees. They don't really like it, but I only do it every once in a while and only for a few seconds.
My hive, like all beehives, is divided into 2 distinct sections, the brood nest and honey storage. This hive currently has 10 bars devoted to raising brood, and 8 bars used only for storing honey. Behind the honey storage, there is a follow board. This creates a space for the colony to occupy. When there are sufficient bees, they will gather together to create new comb. Every month I move the follow board back and add an empty bar for them to expand onto. If you look at my hive, you'll notice it does not have a neat, straight, clean set of bars like in a catalog. Rather, they are mostly of the same size and they butt somewhat tightly together, but there are spacers between them and some of the bars are wider. The wider bars are for the thicker combs bees make for storing honey. Brood is raised in a comb with cells of a consistent size and depth, but honey can be stored in much deeper cells, so these wider bars allow for wider combs and thus more honey. The hive rests on a pair of cinder blocks. On those blocks I have placed empty cans that I use as moats during the seasons where ants become a nuisance. Inside those cans, these bars with deck screws protruding downward hold the bottom of the hive safely out of the ant's reach. It worked, and it was free. Stop judging. There are 2 holes placed midway down the face of the hive for entrances. The screen bottom is pulled away at the front to allow additional entrance and exit, especially for housekeeping bees who have to drag out the dead. During the winter, or if I have to reduce the entrance to prevent robbing bees, I can swivel this bottle cap in front of the hole. On the other entrance, I will provide a feeder jar that can only be accessed from inside the hive. If there is heavy robbing and I must feed, I will provide syrup inside the hive using this hanging jar bar feeder. I mentioned I think the hive was too big. When I built this hive in June of 2014, I was responding to my bees having swarmed after filling my smaller 30-inch long, 12-inch deep top bar hive, and I wanted to build something extra big.
Make it bigger, make it better.
So I made it deep, and I made the walls steep so the bottom of the comb could be as wide as the top. These were mistakes because longer combs are heavier, especially when they're filled with honey. When a comb is heavy, the more stress is put on the rather small attachment it has to the bar, and it will fall away, crushing bees and brood, spilling hard-earned honey and creating a mess the beekeeper has to deal with.
Some honeycomb accidentally fell down in my beehive. Oops.
Walls of a beehive that do not taper enough toward the floor are seen as walls by the bees, and bees will attach their heavy comb to the walls of the hive for additional support. I must destroy these supports to do my inspections. However, if the walls taper towards the bottom, the bees may consider the wall to be a floor and will be less inclined to attach their comb to the sides. This taper will also reduce the weight of the combs because there will be less volume.
Despite some of its shortcomings, This is a really good beehive. I look forward to keeping with it in the future, although in the springtime when it's time to split and put this into a smaller, more sensibly sized top bar beehive, I'm going to have a bit of a trouble. But that's for another video. Thanks for watching. And thanks for watching.